Hi, I'm Harry, and I've braved the cyberpunk city of Velis to bring you 7 tips to help you survive the Ascent. In this isometric shooter, you're a slave to a corporation, but a catastrophic event throws the entire city into chaos. Here's what you should know to help you protect your district in this dystopian undercity. While you're equipped with the cyberdeck and augmentations, you don't have infinite health, so you're going to fall if you soak up too many bullets. You're encouraged to use cover whenever you can, but I found this quite awkward and went for constantly evading instead. Cover works well for stationary objects such as turrets, but dodging is a far more viable tactic in most scenarios, as enemies often try to surround you. You can use the environment to your advantage too. Exploding barrels are often dotted around contested areas, and abandoned vehicles will also explode to deal decent damage when targeted. Fighting early enemies can be tricky, especially at the beginning when you have limited weapons, but killing enemies gets you much needed experience points. So each time you get backed into a corner, overwhelmed by a swarm of enemies, or taken out by a particularly vicious enemy turret, you're getting stronger. Checking your equipment is especially important early on. You start with an adequate pistol and armour, but getting yourself a better weapon makes those first few levels that much easier. It's worth testing out the different weapons too. You can have 2 equipped, as well as 1 type of grenade, so you should experiment. You'll generally get weapon and armour drops from enemies, but in the heat of battle, you may not always notice when you've picked up something new. Once the fighting has died down, hit the character menu and look out for an exclamation point on the loadout and armour sections. The first augmentation you get is Hydraulic Slam. Equip that right away. It's really handy early on, as the AoE damage can get you out of tricky situations, especially if you're still trying to get to grips with the controls. Aug slots work as an extra skill and use energy as a resource. Use these abilities as often as you can. You have a second slot for another augmentation, which can be brought from a grafter or dropped by enemies. Check every corner for crates filled with U-creds, health, or stamina top-ups. You can also find weapon skins or upgrade currency inside lockers or tucked away on shelves inside deserted stores. So it's well worth fully exploring an area before proceeding. If you come across more enemies in your search, know that everything you kill helps you level up to make missions, objectives, or tough bosses easier. In the populated safe zones, talk to NPCs to see if they've got any side missions for you. These can be useful to help you level up if you're finding a boss or an area a little tricky, or if the recommended level of the next main mission is too high. You can upgrade your weapons too by visiting a gunsmith. You'll need specific components, but you'll pick up many of these as you progress through the game. Word of warning though, it might be wise to keep some back, as different enemies are susceptible to certain damage types, especially bosses. Once you upgrade a weapon, enemies will drop the upgraded version, so you don't need to worry about accidentally selling it. Bounties are specific, more formidable enemies you'll come across as you explore and complete missions. They'll generally have a red skull marker above their head. Kill and loot these enemies whenever you come across them, then sell the bounty to a bartender for U-creds. There isn't a massive variety of guns, and you'll find you end up with a lot of duplicates. Sell any extras at any vendor to earn even more cash. And there you have it, 7 tips to help you survive the perilous cyberpunk world of the Ascent. If you found this guide useful, let us know by liking, subscribing, and dinging that notification bell.